She woke before the first light crept through her thin curtains. In the quiet of her small room, she sat on the edge of her bed and stared at her reflection in a chipped mirror. Her hair lay flat against her scalp and dark circles framed her tired eyes. Every morning, she reminded herself to stand tall, but the ache in her chest whispered that she did not belong. She brushed her hair with gentle strokes, trying to smooth out the knots, as if she could iron away the memory of cruel words. Stepping into the narrow hallway, she paused to lace her worn shoes. The shoelaces frayed at the ends, a silent witness to long walks beside mocking crowds. Her heart thudded as she remembered the name tags pinned to her uniform each day. Her own name, neat letters, hiding the truth she felt inside. She tied a double knot, forced a small breath into her lungs, and opened the door. The cool morning air greeted her, carrying the faint scent of rain and asphalt. On the busy street, the world felt larger than her small worries. Horns blared in the distance, and bicycles rattled past. Faces turned away when she passed, eyes lowering at the sight of her plain features. Whispers trailed behind her like dark smoke. She held her head high, but her shoulders trembled, each insult she'd heard 1,000 times pressed against her skin. A dull weight she carried into every step she took. She arrived at the cafe in time to see the amber light of dawn shining through the large windows. The scent of fresh bread and coffee greeted her before she even stepped inside. Behind the counter, her coworkers moved quickly, their laughter echoing in the back room. They did not notice her arrival. She arranged cups and saucers with careful motion, each clink of porcelain echoing in her mind. She hoped her work would shine bright enough to hide her fear. As she wiped the counter, she glanced at the door. He arrived on time, as he did every morning. His eyes were kind, and his smile came without hesitation. He was the only customer who said good morning first, his voice soft yet full of warmth. She managed a small nod in return. Him his drink. Her hand shook so slightly that he set the cup down gently and caught her gaze. His steady look gave her a moment's calm in the sea of judgment. Each day, she watched him sit at the same table by the window. He read the same newspaper pages, drank his coffee slowly, and sometimes jotted notes in a small leather book. When he looked up at her, she felt a quiet joy she could barely name. Her lips twitched in response, and her heart fluttered as if it would burst from her chest. No one else had ever shown such care. Duh. And she wondered if her own reflection could ever hold even a fraction of his kindness. Before long, the cafe buzzed with the morning rush, and she moved with practice and grace. Yet inside, her mind danced with his gentle smile. When her break came, she stepped outside and leaned against the brick wall. She closed her eyes and let the world pause around her. The wind whispered through the leaves overhead, and for a moment, she thought she heard him say her name. In that space between heartbeats, she dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone saw more than her outward shape. And that belief, fragile as it was, glowed inside her like the first light of dawn. She stepped back through the cafe door as the morning crowd swelled. The air felt heavier now, filled with hurried orders and the clatter of cups. Coworkers glanced at her only when they needed something, then looked away. She moved between tables with a practiced grace, but inside, her chest tightened. Each whispered comment felt like a small arrow. She's so plain. Why is she here at all? She focused on the rhythm of her breathing, over and over. To keep the tears from spilling, he arrived as usual, slipping into the chair by the window. His eyes found hers across the room, and she felt a warmth bloom inside her. He waited until a lull in the rush, then gently waved. With each step toward him, she felt her fear mingle with hope. She placed his latte on the table. The foam heart he drew on top yesterday was gone, but she saw kindness still reflected in his gaze. "Good morning," he said, his voice like soft sunlight. It reached into the shadow of her doubt and stayed there. She forced a small smile, pressing her lips together so they would not tremble. "Good morning," she replied quietly. Her words sounded hollow even to her ears, but he nodded as if they were enough. He opened a worn notebook and began to write again. As she turned away, a child at the next table stared at her with wide eyes. The child's mother gently nudged her, whispering something under her breath. The child giggled and pointed at the woman's plain face. She froze, heart pounding. Behind her, the hiss of the espresso machine filled the silence she wanted to break through. She steadied herself, then walked back to the counter. Doing her best to ignore the sting of the laughter, he followed her with his gaze until she reached the counter. When her coworker bumped into her, jostling the sugar jar, he caught it before it tumbled to the floor. She looked up, startled by his quick move. He held the jar out to her with a small smile. "Here," he said softly. "Me. Help." She placed her hand on the jar, and for a second, the warmth of his fingers touched her skin. Her breath caught, and for a moment, the world went still. Between orders, she leaned slightly toward him. Scent of coffee and rain drifted through. The open door? She wanted to say thank you, wanted to tell him how much his gentle help meant. But the words stuck in her throat, tangled among her doubts. He seemed to understand without a single word. He tipped his head and whispered, "You're not alone." The simplicity of his promise sank into her like rain into thirsty soil. By the time the lunch rush arrived, she moved more confidently. The edges of her fear softened. She carried plates and poured drinks with steadier hands. In her mind, she replayed his kindness, his wave, his steady gaze, the way he caught the sugar jar. When she glanced at him across the cafe, he smiled, again a beacon of calm in her storm of insecurity. As her shift ended, she gathered her things with less haste than before. She had survived another morning of whispers and stares. She had felt the sting of ridicule, but also tasted the warmth of an unexpected friend. Stepping outside into the gray afternoon, she let the rain sprinkle over her, washing away a bit of her doubt. Somewhere between the patter of raindrops and the memory of his kindness, she found a flicker of courage. And with that spark glowing softly inside her, she walked home feeling just a little stronger than before. She arrived at the cafe before sunrise, the sky still dark and quiet. She unlocked the door and flipped on the lights, revealing the empty tables and gleaming counters. The morning air felt cool against her skin as she swept the entrance and arranged chairs. Every motion was familiar, but this time her hands trembled with anticipation. She wondered if she would see him today and what he might say. When her shift began, the first rush came sooner than expected. The hiss of the espresso machine and the clatter of cups filled the air. She moved between tables, taking orders and smiling politely, though the edges of her lips felt stiff. Then she noticed something on the counter by the register, a small, pale blue envelope with her name written in neat handwriting. Her heart pounded. The envelope lay beneath the sugar packets, as if hidden in plain sight. She picked it up, her fingers brushing the paper gently, and slipped it into her apron pocket. He came in at his usual time, eyes bright and earnest. He walked to the counter, paused and smiled when he saw her. She nodded, unable to speak it. First, he placed his order and hesitated before adding, "Is everything okay?" She forced a smile and nodded again. "Yes," she whispered, though her voice shook. He paid and left without noticing the envelope in her pocket. She had to remind herself to breathe. During a quiet moment, she excused herself and stepped into the back room. She closed the door behind her and stood still under the fluorescent light. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside, a small card bore a simple message in the same neat handwriting. "I see you. You have a kind heart, and that makes you beautiful." Her eyes blurred with tears as she read the words. No one had ever told her she was beautiful, especially not for what she truly was. The words felt warm, like a gentle sunrise in her chest. She pressed the card against her heart and leaned against the cool wall. The soft echo of distant voices floated through the door. Her breathing slowed as she let the words sink in. Pictured him writing that note, imagining him choosing the words carefully to lift her spirit. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the kindness pouring into her. In that moment, the ache of years of mockery softened to a dull ache, replaced by a spark of hope. When she returned to the front, she placed the card on the counter by the register, where he could see it. She stood behind the counter, heart thumping, and waited. He arrived a few minutes later, coffee cup in hand. He glanced at the card, curiosity lighting his eyes. She watched as he read the note. His lips curved into a gentle smile. He looked up and caught her gaze. Their eyes met, and she felt a rush of warmth spread through her entire body. He spoke softly. "Thank you for this. It means a lot." She managed a nod, unable to find her voice at first. Then she spoke, voice small but steady. "You deserve to know what you did for me." Her words surprised her, their strength carried by the kindness he had shown. He set down his cup and moved closer. He placed a hand over hers, resting on the counter. "I'm glad," he said. "You matter more than you know." The rest of her shift passed in a blur of activity, but she moved with new confidence. When the lunch crowd filled the cafe, she served each customer with genuine warmth, her steps lighter than before. Every time she glanced at him, he offered an encouraging nod or a reassuring smile. At closing time, she gathered her things and slipped the card into her pocket once more. Outside, the sky had brightened to soft pink and gold. She held the card. In her hand, its promise of beauty glowing in her palm. For the first time, she believed she was more than plain. She believed she was seen, valued, and truly beautiful. She arrived early again, heart fluttering with memories of the card and his soft words. The cafe was quiet as she unlocked the door and turned on the lights. She placed the small blue card back on the counter, where it glowed like a promise. Every motion felt meaningful now, each step lighter than before. She smiled to herself, imagining his warm eyes behind the counter later on. When the morning rush began, she moved with a calm confidence she had never known. Orders flowed smoothly, and she greeted each customer with genuine warmth. Behind the counter, her coworker paused and asked if she was feeling better today. She simply nodded with a soft smile, the kindness in her heart too fresh to explain. She felt different, as if the world had shifted on its axis. She was finally finding her place. He arrived as usual, carrying his leather notebook under his arm. He paused when he saw her, eyes bright with welcome. She placed his latte with care, and he hesitated before speaking. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his bag. She felt her chest tighten, a mixture of curiosity and nerves stirring inside her. He pulled out a small sketchbook, its cover worn and soft. "I sketched something yesterday," he explained. "I thought you might like it." She opened the sketchbook with trembling fingers. Inside was a drawing of her standing by the cafe window, early light streaming in around her. The sketch captured more than her face, it captured her spirit, the quiet strength in her posture, the gentle determination in her eyes. She ran her fingertip along the pencil lines, heart pounding. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked up at him. "It's beautiful," she whispered. His smile was shy, almost as if he feared she might not like it. He shrugged softly. "I wanted you to see how I see you," he said. "Kind, strong, and beautiful." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, blinking back tears. The noise of the cafe faded, leaving only his gentle voice and the steady thump of her heart. Felt seen in a way she never had before. His gift was more than a drawing, it was an affirmation of her worth. Later that afternoon, as the cafe quieted, he invited her to join him at a small art exhibit that evening. "There's a local artist showing work on kindness and courage," he said. "I thought you might enjoy it." Her stomach fluttered at the invitation. She hesitated, remembering her fears of not fitting in, of being judged. Yet something inside her, fueled by his unwavering support, urged her to accept. She nodded, voice soft. "I'd like that." That evening, she dressed carefully in a simple but clean outfit, her heart racing with anticipation as she walked. To the gallery, the city lights twinkled around her like distant stars. She rehearsed greetings in her mind, worried she might stumble over her words. But beneath her nerves, a quiet excitement bloomed. She was stepping outside her comfort zone, trusting someone who had shown her kindness. At the gallery, he greeted her with a warm smile and offered his arm. She placed her hand gently on his, surprised by how natural it felt. Inside, paintings and sculptures filled the space, each piece reflecting themes of hope, resilience, and compassion. She moved from artwork to artwork, her eyes wide with wonder. He explained the stories behind each piece, his passion evident in every word. She listened, captivated, her own spirit ignited by the beauty around her, as they paused before a sculpture. Of two hands reaching toward each other, she turned to him. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said, her voice gentle but steady. He looked at her with sincere warmth. "Thank you for coming," he replied. In that moment, she realized she was no longer defined by the whispers of others. She was defined by her own courage and by the kindness of someone who saw her true beauty. They left the gallery under a sky full of stars. She felt the world was kinder tonight, softer around the edges. Walking beside him, she knew that her journey was just beginning. The path ahead felt less lonely, because she had found someone who believed in her and because she had found the courage to believe in herself. She stepped into the cafe the next morning feeling lighter than she had in years. The early light filtered through the windows, painting warm patterns on the floor. As she smoothed her apron, she remembered the gallery's gentle hush and the way he had guided her hand across the sculpture. Her heart fluttered at the memory. She realized she was not the same person who had trembled at the doorway just days ago. When the rush began, she moved with quiet confidence. She greeted each customer with a genuine smile and met every gaze. With calm eyes, a child at a corner table asked for an extra pastry. She knelt down to hand it over with soft words. "Here you go. Enjoy." The child grinned and waved her thanks. That moment felt like proof that her kindness could brighten other people's days too. He arrived mid-morning as usual. She carried his latte across the room with steady hands. He watched her with gentle pride. He said, "You're glowing today." His words were soft, but they echoed in her heart. She nodded, cheeks warm. Inside, she felt like a flower blooming in sunlight, finally free to open her petals. After her shift, she stayed behind to tidy the tables. He appeared with 2 cups of tea and offered one to her. They sat by the window, steam curling between them. She sipped slowly, savoring the warmth. He asked about her family and her dreams beyond the cafe. She found herself speaking easily, sharing hopes she had never voiced before. His attentive gaze encouraged her to keep talking until she surprised herself. That afternoon, as she walked home along the tree-lined street, she spotted a small group of teenagers pointing at her. Her chest tightened. But then she felt something new, a quiet strength. She lifted her chin and walked past them without flinching. Their whisper faded behind her. With each step, she felt more sure of her own worth. She remembered his words. "From the gallery, you belong." At home, she found the chipped mirror in her room. She stood before it, her heart pounding. She closed her eyes and sighed. Then she lifted her chin, straightened her shoulders, and opened her eyes. For the first time, she saw a different reflection. Not perfect, but genuine. Not plain, but strong. Her eyes shone with the spark of someone who knew she could face the world. The next day, he invited her to join him at a community event where volunteers painted murals on a park wall. She hesitated only for a moment before saying yes. When they arrived, colors burst all around them. Bright blues, soft pinks, hopeful greens. He handed her a paintbrush and waited patiently. She dipped it in color and added her strokes, laughing when paint splattered on her apron. In that shared creativity, she felt joy ripple through her entire being. As they worked side by side, people stopped to admire the mural. A passerby complimented her choice of colors. "Your design is beautiful." She felt a warm pride and nudged him with a playful smile. He squeezed her hand gently. In that crowded park, she felt seen by many and valued by him above all. When the mural was done, they sat on the grass and watched the sunset. The sky blazed in orange and gold. She leaned against him, feeling safe and content. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders. She rested her head against his chest and felt his heartbeat steady and kind. In that peaceful moment, she understood that beauty did not come from a mirror or from other people's praise, came from the courage to believe in herself and the love that helped her grow. Walking home together, hand in hand, she felt a gentle hope flutter within her. She knew there would still be harsh words and moments of doubt, But now she carried something stronger, a belief in her own worth and a friend who would remind her of it whenever she forgot. And as the day turned, tonight she felt her heart swell with the quiet promise of tomorrow. She woke before sunrise again, heart fluttering with nervous excitement. Today was different. She had invited him to her small apartment for coffee after her shift. As she dressed in her favorite scarf and a simple dress, she smoothed out every crease, hoping to look her best. She glanced in the mirror and took a deep breath. She reminded herself that she deserved moments like this, moments filled with warmth and care. At the cafe, she moved through her morning routine with steady calm. Yet her thoughts kept drifting to the afternoon ahead. Would he like her home? Would he judge the worn furniture or the chipped paint on the walls? She shook her head, pushing away the doubts. She had grown stronger, she told herself, and she could face this challenge with the same courage she had found before. He arrived as usual, sliding into his seat with that gentle smile. She placed his latte before him, hands steady, despite the flutter in her chest. He noticed her nerves immediately. "You seem different today," he said softly, closing his notebook. She managed a small laugh. "I'm hosting you at my place later," she admitted. His eyes lit up with surprise and delight. "I'd like that very much," he replied, voice warm. After closing time, they walked side by side toward her apartment. The city streets felt alive in the golden light of late afternoon. She pointed out small details, a hidden mural on a side wall, a tree bursting with flowers. He listened intently, asking questions and marveling at her keen eye. With each step, her nerves eased. His interest made her feel seen and valued. When they arrived, she unlocked the door and led him inside. Her apartment was small but cozy. A few framed sketches lined one wall, including his portrait of her. He paused at the doorway, taking it all in with a thoughtful gaze. "Your home is beautiful," he said. She felt a rush of relief and pride. "Thank you," she whispered. Guiding him to the small table by the window, she poured coffee into mismatched cups and handed him a piece of cake she had baked that morning. He took a bite and closed his eyes, savoring the flavor. "This is wonderful," he said, his smile genuine. They sat and talked as the sunlight dimmed, sharing stories of childhood dreams and hopes for the future. In her living room, surrounded by her art and mementos, she felt safe enough to open her heart. At one point, she grew quiet, staring at the cracked windowsill, noticed and reached across the table to hold her hand. "What's on your mind?" he asked. She hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I still worry I don't belong." He squeezed her hand gently. "You belong right here with me, with your art and with every kind thing you do." His words felt like a balm on old wounds. They moved to the couch, sitting close as evening settled outside. He pointed to one of his sketches on her wall. "This one means a lot to me," she said. "It reminds me of how far I've come." He nodded, his gaze soft. "And I'm proud of you." In that moment, she realized her journey was not just about seeing her beauty, but about believing in herself enough to share her world. When he left that night, he gave her a gentle hug and whispered, "Thank you for this gift of your home and your trust." She watched him walk away, the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. She stood in her doorway, heart full and calm, the first time she felt at peace with who she was, knowing that kindness and courage had brought her her end, that together they could face whatever came next. She woke before sunrise once more, a quiet smile on her lips as she remembered the week's journey. The small blue card, the sketch, the gallery, and the mural had woven a soft thread of hope through her days. Today she would surprise him with something she'd been planning in secret. She dressed in a warm sweater and jeans, her heart light and steady. Before leaving, she paused at the mirror, looked into her own eyes, and whispered, "You are enough." Then she stepped out into the crisp morning air. At the cafe, she greeted her coworkers with genuine warmth. They noticed the bright energy around her and asked, "What's different today?" She only smiled and said she felt good. The morning rush came, and she moved through it with confidence. Each thank you and please she spoke carried a calm strength. When he arrived and smiled at her, she felt a full flutter of joy. She handed him his latte, but this time she added a small, wrapped package beside the cup. He looked surprised. "What's this?" he asked, curiosity shining in his eyes. She felt her breath catch for a moment, then said softly, "Open it." He untied the simple ribbon, lifted the lid, and found a small, hand-bound journal. Inside, the first page bore a sketch of the cafe window, drawn by her, with his notebook on the table and her figure by the counter bathed in morning light. Beneath it, she had written, "Thank you for helping me see my beauty. Your kindness changed my world." He looked up, eyes moist with emotion. For a moment, neither spoke. She watched as his breath caught, as he flipped through the empty pages waiting to be filled. "It's beautiful," he whispered, breathed out the tension in her chest. "I want us to fill it together," she said.
Yes.
"With stories, drawings, hopes, everything we share from now on." He reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was gentle but strong. "I would love that," he replied. Their morning continued with easy conversation. She told him about the idea she had to document the kindness of strangers, the little moments that shine like stars in everyday life. He listened with bright interest, offering suggestions and laughter. She felt seen, heard, and valued in every word he spoke. The cafe's noise faded in the background as they planned journeys to parks, galleries, and quiet corners where they could record their stories. When her shift ended, they walked together to the nearby park. She carried the journal, tucked under her arm like a precious promise. In the park's golden light, she found a bench beneath a blooming tree. He opened the journal and took a pencil. She sat beside him, heart fluttering with warmth. Together, they began. He sketched the tree's delicate blossoms. She wrote a simple line about the day's joy. Words and images intertwined, her neat handwriting dancing across the page. His soft pencil lines capturing the moment's wonder. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pink and purple, they closed the journal and sat in companionable silence. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart, wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. She felt safe, cherished, and beautiful in a way that no mirror had ever shown her. The world around them felt gentler, richer, with color and light. Walking home hand in hand, they spoke of tomorrow's plans, a visit to a new cafe, a weekend, art fair, simple days filled with tea and laughter. She realized that her journey had brought her to a place where kindness and courage lived in her heart. No longer did she see only flaws in the mirror, she saw a person capable of hope, love, and beauty. And beside her, someone who believed in her every step of the way. That night, she placed the journal on her bedside table and closed her eyes. In the soft glow of the lamp, she replayed the day's moments. His surprise, her gift, their shared creation under the tree. A peaceful smile curved her lips. She had found not just someone who said you're beautiful, but someone who helped her believe it herself. And as sleep carried her away, she felt the gentle promise of all their tomorrows waiting to be written together.